Welcome so much to Discover the Power of Food, a Fresh Start. It's really great to have you here. And I hope that you will find this valuable time of yours to be valuable to you. So I'm Janet Jacks. I'm the founder, along with my husband, of Goodness Me Natural Food Market. And we actually had no idea what would happen when we decided to open up a little place where we could get the things that we wanted and maybe a few other people as well. But let me tell you briefly why I ended up doing what I'm doing and how I learned what I learned. So first of all, not too long after we were married, just after a year, we were called to my father-in-law's bedside, and he was diagnosed with kidney failure as a result of his type 1 diabetes, and he was going to die. And he was just 55 years old. And we were shocked. How could this be? He's always taken care of himself. He's always done what the doctors asked. But he didn't die then. He lived for 2 more years. And during those 2 years, we experienced what it means to see all the complications of diabetes. So he suffered previously, before this event, from losing all his teeth because his gums had failed, and he had many heart attacks, and his kidneys were not working well, and so he had to have his stomach tapped regularly, and he had cataracts, and in those days that was really big surgery. And when the bandages were removed, behind that, he had diabetic retinopathy, so he was almost blind. And he had gangrene, and he had leg amputation. So we became well acquainted with the horrific complications that diabetes can bring. And he had always done what the doctors said. And then he died at 57. Now, during that 2-year time, my husband developed type 1 diabetes as well. And now we were faced with that same responsibility, and we had just seen what diabetes could do. And although that was really hard, it was an education in what can happen with choices that we make. And I decided that I had to find another way, because he had always done what he was supposed to, and yet at 57 he died after 2 years of suffering. So now my husband had type 1 diabetes, and now we had to figure it out. And I didn't know what to do. I asked God to protect him each day while I tried to figure out the answer. And that was the motivation for me to discover what the power of food was. I didn't know where to start with trying to find an answer. And there wasn't a lot of information or media at all about nutrition. But as I looked for answers, I thought, this is something we can change, and there aren't a lot of other things. We can't change our genetics, and so we can't change the fact that the pancreas has been destroyed by an autoimmune process. And so little by little, we began to change the way we eat. Well, I was changing the way we were eating, and as we went along, we found many benefits. And down the road, at one point, I remember the doctor saying that to my husband that he needed to go on to cholesterol medication because his LDL was too high. And I didn't want that to happen, but neither did he. And surprisingly, he said to the doctor, I don't want to. And he came home and said to me, tell me what to do. And that intensified my search for an answer. And the interesting thing is that as I looked for an answer for us, I discovered an answer for so many other people's problems, for other problems of ours and other problems of other people. And it was an amazing, surprising, exciting journey to discover the power that food had. So I want to welcome you to a fresh start in your life. That's my story. And there were other times and other seasons where there were other things that we needed to work on. And I have found that food and its power has been one of the most amazing parts of the journey. So I want to think about what your story is. What is it that you'd like to experience? Why are you here? What is it you hope to have as you have a fresh start? Do you have some particular issues that you want to address? Are you feeling like there are things happening in your body that you don't like? Are you new to understanding that food has great power, or is this something that you've already experienced? So I want to know if you'd like to tell me what you'd like to accomplish in your life. What would your fresh start mean? Well, now I've lost my chat, so let's see. There we are, back. Is it possible that you're looking for more energy? Is it possible that you need to simplify your understanding? Is it possible that you feel like, oh my goodness, there's so many voices about nutrition. What can I trust? What's going to work? I don't want to waste my energy. Do you want to get more sleep? Do you want to get your diabetes type 2 under control? Are you wanting to refresh what you already know? Are you wanting to lose weight? Finally, that you've been trying. Do you want to learn how to eat real food or have less inflammation? Do you want to diminish your pain? Do you want to help balance out your cholesterol? Do you want to boost your metabolism? Do you want to have less inflammation, slow your aging? All of those things you can accomplish with the power of food. And it is amazing what it can do. I have been continually surprised, even brought to tears, by the stories that people experience when they understand the power of food. So let's see if we can do that. Yes, so lots of things. Thyroid help, less sugar, less cravings, fatty liver. Hey, we can do that. If we know what to do and we understand what a fatty liver really is, we can do that. And have less stress, even sometimes when there's more stress. So let's find out what we need to know. Thanks for sharing all those stories and those hopes. You need to understand first that food is information for your cells. Food talks to your cells. It tells your cells how to communicate with one another, what kind of hormones to make, what to throw away, what to build and restore, how to make enzyme functions happen. And right now, as we sit here, everything I've eaten today, everything that I had for supper, everything I've had to drink, everything, and maybe anything I will have after the webinar is over, everything is going to impact my body for harm or for good. And it may just be so little, you can't feel it, but it is happening just the same. Your food is not neutral. It either will make you healthier and heading toward the resolution of many of these things that we mentioned, or it's going to head you into more symptoms, sliding down the slippery slope. And it's imperceptible day by day and meal by meal, but it is happening. You're either walking toward health and wholeness, or you're walking away from it. And when we understand that, it's really amazing and startling. Now, somebody asked about high LDL and low HDL and taking a supplement for that. First thing you need to do is change your diet, and you might be amazed. You might be amazed. And so let's think about this for just a minute. I like to remind you that you are a guinea pig, that all of us are a guinea pig, and the experiment isn't one that we signed up for or agreed to the risks of. And the experiment says, what happens when we feed a population, a society, the kind of food we're eating today, which has been refined and genetically modified or hybridized, that has been texturized and colored and given preservatives that has been grown on over-farmed soil that's lacking minerals. What happens when we feed a population like that? And we can look around at the things we'd like to do tonight and look around at our family, our friends, and the statistics, and we can see that a lot of things happen, and not just in our senior years, but to young adults, to middle-aged parents, and to children as well. We need to understand that we are guinea pigs, and we need to step out of that experiment that we never signed up for and were never given the outline of the risks. And you can do it. But what's happened is that eating has become a hazardous activity. Can you imagine something so foundational to our pleasure and to our very life and necessity? Eating has become a hazardous activity. First, we have overconsumptive undernutrition. Do you like that? Overconsumptive undernutrition. I made that phrase up to represent that we are eating a whole lot of nothing. We're not getting the nutrition we need, but we're getting too much consumption. And we have a lack of key nutrients. I was just reading a new book that I bought a couple of weeks ago, and in it, it was telling us that the U.S. Department of Agriculture published statistics saying that huge percentages of the American population are lacking very important nutrients. For example, 92% of the U.S. population is deficient in potassium, 86% deficient in vitamin E, 70% are deficient in calcium, and maybe 50% or a little more deficient in vitamin A, vitamin C, and magnesium, just to name a few. And perhaps I think we eat better in general than Americans, but I would say that our statistics wouldn't be that far off. And it's not just happening in developed countries, it's also happening in third world countries as they adopt more westernized food. So we are lacking key nutrients, and every nutrient has functions in the body that are required. For example, magnesium, 325 functions is what they used to say, but the number keeps climbing as we learn more about magnesium's power. And each of those functions requires sufficient magnesium, and that's just one nutrient that you might be lacking. So we're lacking key nutrients, and we need to understand that they are essential. Every single nutrient is essential. Vitamins, minerals, amino acids, essential fatty acids, they're all essential. And then there's misinformation. It came to light, a few years ago that back in the 60s, the sugar industry paid its scientists to implicate fat as a cause of heart disease. I want you to think about that statement for a minute. They paid their scientists to implicate fat as a cause of heart disease. As a result, we became fearful of fat, and we thought it would make us fat, it would make us sick, and we didn't understand that as we ate more fat-free foods, we were eating a lot more sugar. So I want us to understand that we can't always believe what we hear or what conventional wisdom says, because there's a lot of misinformation out there, and I'd like to set some of it straight tonight. And then we have man-made foods, and these aren't really foods, but we call them foods. We eat them like foods, but they have a lot of ingredients and a lot of processes that are used to make them, and they don't work for our body, so they don't allow our body to work. They don't just lack the nutrients that we need, but they actually stand in the way and put hurdles in front of our body's attempts to make things work right. And we also need to think about a little experiment that, I guess it wasn't that little, but Professor David Rollo and team from McMaster University did a number of years ago. Some of you may know I used to do a radio show every Saturday morning, and I interviewed Professor Rollo at that time, and he was talking about his experiment. He and his team of researchers had the idea that if people had every nutrient that they needed, if they had every one, then maybe they would live a lot longer. And they wanted to test that hypothesis, but can't test it on people because that experiment takes too long and it's too tricky to make sure people get every nutrient that they need every day. So they took mice and divided them into two groups. And the first group got standard mouse fare, and the other group got a plethora of nutrients added to their food. So vitamins, vitamin A and B and C and vitamin D, and they had all the minerals, and then they had the amino acids. They had herbs like garlic and ginkgo and essential fatty acids, everything that the team could come up with that might help nourish a mouse. And they gave them this mixture of nutrients every day from the time they were born until their death. They wanted to see what would happen. So fast forward a couple of years, and the mice are nearing their life expectancy. And Professor Rollo took a mouse from the one group that had the standard mouse fare and put it on his hand, and it was moving slowly, like it was stiff or sore, or maybe both. And its fur looked dull and matted and missing a little fur in places. It looked and acted like an old mouse. And when they tried to teach this mouse something new to learn and remember, it was less able than when it was a young mouse. And then he took a mouse from the supernourished group. And this mouse was on his hand, but just wanted to run, run, run. It was active. It was keen. It had shiny fur, so it looked and acted like a young mouse. And it also was more able to learn and remember new things than when it was younger. And that's the picture of longevity that we want. Now, the team was asking if we would live a lot longer if we had all these nutrients. And what they found out is that, yes, the mice that were supernourished lived longer, a little longer, not a whole lot longer, but they lived better. They had a greater health span. And that's what we're interested in. We want to extend our health span. And so we need to understand that what messages the food gives our body is going to impact all of that. What message is your food giving you? What message is the food you've eaten today or the things you've had to drink? What is that saying to you? What is the message to your cells? How is your body receiving a message? And what's your body saying about it? You may have heard of Dr. David Perlmutter. He is a neurologist, a physician, and also a fan of integrative medicine or natural medicine in helping people live their best life. And he says this very emphatically: I cannot reiterate this enough. The fate of your health is a choice, not a destiny dictated by your genes. The fate of your health is a choice, not a destiny dictated by your genes. Depending on where you're at with your health, you may celebrate that, or you may think that can't be. And I know that we've always thought that our genes have dictated our health. But new research shows that there is a greater impact from the choices we make. The lifestyle choices, the thoughts that we think, the food that we eat are much more important than our genes and can affect our gene expression, can stop negative genes from being expressed, and can help the positive genes to be expressed. And if you're in the middle of a health crisis, as my mom was many years ago when she was diagnosed with 4th stage breast cancer that had metastasized to the bone. And I remember I used to end my radio show saying, the power to change your health is in your hands, and the time to do it is now. And I remember being challenged with that, thinking, well, I don't know how much choice she has in changing her health now, because the doctor said she had 1 to 6 months to live, probably more like 1 month. And you know what? We gave her all the nourishment that we could, and she lived for 4 years and 3 months, and she was well most of that time. And she was 88 when she died. And I learned a lot because even in the face of something so dire, she wasn't able to get rid of the cancer, but she was able to hold it at bay and enjoy 4 more wedding anniversaries, 4 more Mother's Days, 4 more birthdays, and many more celebrations with her family. And it was an amazing journey. And so the fate of your health is a choice, not a destiny dictated by your genes. And I remember after she died, her family physician said to me, that was incredible. She could not believe how well she did and how long she lived. So it was a blessing to all of us. So whatever is your story, whatever you hope to do, the way to do it is by giving your body the healing, helpful, nourishing, positive messages that it needs in order to heal and restore. So let's take a moment to think about some of those messages your body might be giving you. Pain and inflammation. You know, when I began teaching this information, because we put it in practice in our own lives, and I began to see what it did for others, and I began to teach people about it. And one thing that really surprised me was how they found less pain, less inflammation. So silent inflammation like heart disease or painful inflammation that's talking to you all the time. And their pain was reduced, whether it might be headaches or back pain, fibromyalgia. I remember one woman who said 4 weeks and she felt pain-free, and she had not been pain-free in 10 years. And whether you can remove your pain or reduce your pain, you can do at least some improvement on your pain by the way that you eat and by the messages you give to your body. And many, many people have been surprised to learn that the way they were eating and the choices they were making were giving them pain. And when they changed those choices, the pain reduced. And that's a wonderful thing to discover. What about mood? You know, I've had people tell me that they feel happier and less stressed, even in the face of more stress, when they change the messages that food is giving their body. I think cravings, of all the list of things I'll mention here, probably the most common denominator. We all get cravings. In fact, we're a craving society. But cravings are a sign of an unhealthy metabolism. And we need to understand how we can diminish them and eliminate them and get our hunger under control. I mean, adequate hunger is a good thing. But being hungry all day, chasing your hunger all day, that's not a good thing. And so when we start to see cravings diminish, it's a sign that we're healing our metabolism. Seems like we all want to lose a little weight. And I think over this time of lockdown, we've certainly been restricted and perhaps in the kitchen more. And I think some people have found that the weight has crept up. And what is the best way to handle this is not to go on a diet, but to work toward giving your body the positive, healing, healthy messages that food has to give, and let weight take care of itself as a side benefit. Don't let weight loss be your number one goal. Feeling energetic, having a better mood, reducing pain, getting your cravings under control. If we do that, never mind the weight, it will fall off as we do the right thing. And who doesn't want more energy? And what always surprises me, and I see it over and over, when people begin to change the messages their food is giving their body, one of the very first things they notice is increased energy. And I hear it over and over and over from all kinds of people. And a close second is that their cravings have diminished. And people are really surprised because they always thought, for example, they didn't have enough energy, would never have enough energy. And suddenly this energy appears and the cravings diminish. And when that happens, you know that you are burning your fuel for energy and you are using it and you're healing your metabolism, and many good things will happen. Another area that you may want to correct, or that we often hear people complain about, is dry or troubled skin. And we may lather on so many things on our skin to try to counteract that dryness. But what can happen when we start changing the kind of food we eat is that our dry skin becomes less dry, and then not dry, and then more glowing and alive, something that people can see in your face, and they can see the sparkle in your eyes. We're always worrying about cholesterol and blood pressure. And by the way, while we think about cholesterol, we are so confused about cholesterol, and we don't understand what we're looking for and what the problem is. So I want to recommend to you a webinar that's coming up later this month. I think it's on the 22nd of February by naturopath Kate Rayom, and she has very wise things to tell you about cholesterol and understanding what it is, what it does, where the problems lie. And cholesterol and blood pressure often go hand in hand. And as you change the kind of food that you eat, your cholesterol will change. Remember I said to you that the reason we began this second part of our journey, the first was diabetes, and the second was, cholesterol's risen. This is about 30 years ago. Don't want to take those cholesterol drugs. What can we do? And he still doesn't take cholesterol drugs because there is a lot you can do, and you need to understand where the goal is. And so if you follow the kinds of recommendations that I've put down, you should find that your HDL will rise. And interestingly, the diabetic clinic where my husband attends says he has the highest HDL of any male patient in the clinic, and possibly higher than any females either, because they tend to be a little higher. And recently another doctor, a different doctor, told him that's the highest HDL I've ever seen. So you can raise it naturally with your food. And blood pressure as well. We're so worried about salt, and that's not the cause of blood pressure. Well, not alone. It plays a minor role compared to what we think. When I started teaching this information, I didn't expect that it would help people sleep better. That wasn't one of my goals. But over and over, people have told me they're sleeping more deeply, they're sleeping better. Not everyone, but a significant number of people. As you heal your metabolism and balance out your cravings and your hunger and your energy production, you may find that you will sleep more deeply. Need to spend less hours in bed or the same, but wake up refreshed. And of course, digestive problems like gas and bloating. So these are many common complaints that so many of us deal with. And what surprises me is that the same types of things that we can do in understanding the power of food and applying it can correct all of those. They can correct all of those and other things, basically all at the same time. So, are you ready to discover the power of food? Because you know what? Once you understand, it becomes simple. And yet it's so profound. It's so amazing, so surprising and compelling. And the stories of people's transformation when they discover what they should do and how they should eat, it's amazing. I want you to understand, first of all, some of the myths that stand in your way. Because if you don't understand that, you keep getting drawn back into what we call conventional wisdom, the things that a lot of people believe and talk about. And then you feel drawn back and you can't stay with what's right and true. You can't hold yourself where it needs to be. So, first of all, calories. We think that we need to cut down our calories in order to lose weight, for example. But a calorie is a calorie. But that is not true. There are good calories and bad calories. And only good calories can speak health and healing to your cells. So don't count your calories. Make your calories count. We have misunderstanding about fat. We think it's going to make us fat, or that it's going to make our cholesterol rise, and especially we're afraid of saturated fat. And what we don't understand is that the most dangerous fats are not the saturated fats, but the heat-processed, damaged fats that are so prevalent in our food supply. that fat, actually, eating more fat can help you feel satisfied, can help make your cells work better, because every cell has a membrane made of fat. And we need to understand the essential fats that we need, and also that saturated fats are healthy and give stability and structure to our cell membranes. We need to understand that. We need to understand salt, because salt has gotten a bad rap. And everybody talks about not eating too much salt. But if you crave salt, you probably need more salt. And it's really important to pay attention to that, because we have many things like stress that deplete our salt, or sugar, deplete our sodium. Or sugar, eating sugar can deplete your sodium and your magnesium. And we have to understand the importance of salt, because it is one of our key electrolytes. And it also helps us produce more hydrochloric acid so we can digest our protein foods. And salt alone is not the cause of high blood pressure. We need to increase our magnesium, and then the sodium won't be such a problem. It's our electrolytes out of balance that's a problem. And we think that in order for us to get healthy, we have to lose weight. And so we make that our primary goal. But actually, what we need to do to get healthy, and then the weight will fall off. We need to stop focusing on the weight and start focusing on getting healthy. We also think, oh, everything in moderation. I don't believe that at all, because there are many things we should not eat at all. And we shouldn't just placate ourselves by saying, well, everything in moderation, it's okay. The things that speak healing, we should not worry about moderation. We should eat and enjoy what we need and what satisfies. And then the things that are harmful for us, we need to not be eating. We need to cut them out of our diet and not just say everything in moderation. And also we have this belief that, well, if I just eat this that isn't good for me, I can exercise it away. And although you might burn up the calories, you might be surprised how much exercise it takes to burn up a big piece of chocolate cake, for example. But what you can't exercise away is the negative message that the wrong food gives your body. You can burn up calories, but you can't remove the bad message just with exercise. In fact, you're putting extra stress on your body to try to exercise away your indiscretions. So, what do we do? Let's see what kind of action can we take that's going to make a difference. First thing, you need to eat real food. Isn't that breakfast I had real? Isn't that sandwich I had at lunch real? What does it mean, eat real food? That's a good question. Let's start with salt. Most salt on the market isn't real, because most salt on the market has been refined. Natural, whole, unrefined salt has 65 different minerals. Tiny amounts, many you've never heard of, but they're there, and they're there for a reason. And when we refine salt and we take those other minerals out, because the salt might be hygroscopic, might get damp because it soaks up moisture. It might clog up machinery. It might cost more. There's many reasons. We need to make sure that we eat real food. And so simple things such as table salt has been refined. It's had the minerals removed. It's had sugar added and free-flowing chemicals added and iodine added. And so it's not real. The fats that are widely available are not real. They are highly processed. They are refined. They are treated to high heat in a way that can damage them. And they can come to us processed and harmful to start out before we even begin to cook with them. Most of the oils on the market are refined and processed and bleached. And they've had the nutrients removed. And they've been exposed to perhaps heat, high heat, or chemicals, or both, in order to be refined. And wheat is no longer real. It's not the wheat of great-grandma's time or great-great-grandma's time. It's not the wheat of Bible times when it was considered the staff of life. It's been changed and changed and changed and changed and changed. And no, it's not genetically modified, but it's been hybridized and changed so much that it is very inflammatory and it is very difficult to digest. And things that are genetically modified aren't real. Genetic modification means you've taken, for example, a fish gene and a plant gene and put them together, or a bacteria gene and a plant gene and put them together. You've taken a non-food and put it with a food. And we don't really know what's going to happen to people long term, but we have seen what's happened to, for example, monarch butterflies as they eat the Bt corn, and what's happening to the caterpillar stage where they're getting something that resembles leaky gut from eating this corn. Or sorry, milkweed. It's not corn, but the Bt corn sprays drift over to the milkweed. So we need to eat real food. And one way to think about real food is to think, what was available 150 years ago? What foods did God give to the earth before man interfered? And those are real foods. So we need to eat real food. That's the first thing. If it's not real, then don't eat it. Second thing, we need to eat super nourishing, nutrient-dense foods. So we might be eating real food, but we might not be getting the nourishment that we need. So I have a question for you. What does your food eat? What does your food eat before you eat it? So if it's plants, plants are getting their minerals from the soil. Is it on depleted soil? Is it on nourished soil? You know, even back in the 1930s, the US government was concerned about the drop in nutrients in the soil. Imagine today. If you're eating eggs and meat, what is your food eating? It matters, because this is how we get plants that are supernourished from the soil, and then animals that have been supernourished by eating plants that have been supernourished, by eating the food that they should be eating. We're having a difficulty with minerals. Most of us are very deficient in minerals, and we need specific minerals to run every enzyme function in the body. So we have to figure out ways to get more supernourishing foods. A group of experts have been saying that perhaps the primary causative factors of almost every debilitating condition today lies in a potential deficiency of micronutrients. And by micronutrients, we're meaning, first of all, vitamins, secondly, minerals, thirdly, amino acids, and fourthly, essential fatty acids. And plants get their minerals from the soil, and then they make their vitamins from the sun, but they need to be well nourished from the soil so they can be a healthy plant to make their vitamins from the sun in a more efficient way. So everything starts with the soil. The soil is not just something to hold the plant up. So we need to find some ways that we can get more super nourishing, nutrient-dense foods. So one way to do that is bone broth, something you might throw out. You can simmer and make into a broth that's full of minerals. Eating fermented foods, because they are bioavailable to us. Lacto-fermented vegetables, for example, like sauerkraut and kimchi. Choosing organic produce, because organic produce is grown on mineral-rich soil. And the longer that farmers have been growing organically, the richer that soil gets. So at Goodness Me, one of our preferred suppliers has been growing organically for almost as many years as we've been in business. And that's since 1981, so we're now 40 years old. And the longer that you are farming that way, then the richer the soil gets. So we need to find ways to eat super nourishing, nutrient-dense foods because your biochemistry needs these nutrients to make it work. Junk food doesn't speak the molecular language. It doesn't tell your body how to operate. And the third key is really, really important, and that is balancing your blood sugar. But you may say, well, I'm not diabetic. That doesn't matter, because glycemic volatility is a problem for all of us. There are so many things available to eat that can raise our blood sugar quickly. And a lot of us have lost the ability to be sensitive to insulin. So we're overproducing insulin. And this is a major cause of inflammation, which is a major cause of many of the things that we're experiencing. And so we need to eat real food, but not just any real food. We need to eat real food that will help to produce a nice, steady blood sugar. And we need to get the nutrients that make that insulin work for us, so we don't have to overproduce insulin in order to try to keep our blood sugar in line. You know, researchers estimate that we have approximately 1 teaspoon, 5 grams of glucose in our whole body. So think about what happens when you drink a great big sugar-filled soft drink, for example. That's a hit on your body. That's hard. And your body has to cope and figure out what to do. So we need to balance our blood sugar. And what that means is we need to understand how the food reacts in our body and whether it spikes our blood sugar, because that can start us on a roller coaster. I'm just going to not pause the presentation, but just answer a couple of things I see that have come up. Is organic sunflower healthy to eat for cooking at high heat? No. And I don't love avocado oil for that either. The actual best fats for cooking at high temperatures are not oils, but fats. Excuse me. Fats are saturated, they are stable, they do not break down when they're heated, and those are the best kinds of fats to use. So that would include things like ghee, which is clarified butter, unrefined coconut oil for high heat. It would include things like lard, which is natural fat processed from animals, is another one. And in the oil family, sesame oil can take about 375 degrees. And then for lower heat cooking, we can use butter, but it would burn at high heat. There are 2 kinds of avocado oil. There's unrefined and refined. So if you're using unrefined, which is the whole, then we don't want to cook really high heat with that, lower heat with that. Let's see what else I see on the screen here. Okay, that's good for now. Let's continue. So if we take these 3 principles, eat real food, look for super nourishing, nutrient-dense choices, thinking about not just the food, but how it's grown, how it's prepared, what's happened to it, and thirdly, eating in a way that balances your blood sugar. So we need to get started. Now, I wrote these 2 books to help you. Many of you will have them, and if you don't, you might find it helpful. We had taught a program that we called Life Watchers for many years, and people who took the course said you have to put it in a book. And I said yes. I didn't realize how long that would take. It took me 3.5 years to write Discover the Power of Food. And you know, in preparation for tonight's presentation, I sat down and skim read some of the chapters. And I was delighted with what I saw and with the refreshing encouragement that it gives. And then people wanted more recipes, so I wrote Share Goodness, which is more about the recipes and not about the information. So both have recipes, but Discover the Power of Food has a lot of information. So if you need help, these will help you understand, especially discover the power of food. It'll help you understand enough of the why so you can embrace the changes. You need to understand that there's a solid scientific explanation for the things that I've said to you. And when you really can embrace those changes because you understand why, then you need more information about what and how, practical information. And I always want to give people practical tools so they can actually do this and what it looks like on their table or in their kitchen and make it easy and doable and tasty as well. So they're there to help you if you need that help. So let's think about what's for breakfast. Have you ever chased your hunger all day? You eat something in the morning and the next thing you know, all you can think about is food and you want to eat again and again and again. Because the very first things that you eat in the day can set your blood sugar off in a way and your insulin response off in such a way that you are hungry all day long and you can't seem to get hold of it. If you eat the right kind of breakfast in the morning, you will find that you aren't even thinking about lunch. And it might even be past lunchtime and you're saying, oh my goodness, I didn't even notice. You want to eat in such a way that your cravings are diminished and that you feel satisfied until lunchtime. And that means you have to create a steady blood sugar. If you spike your blood sugar with what you eat, you are going to be more hungry later. And if you stabilize your blood sugar with what you eat, you are going to feel more satisfied. And we need to do this, not just one day, but every day. Start our day with foods that make us feel satisfied, that give us satiety, that keep our blood sugar steady, and that are real and are full of micronutrients to make those enzyme functions work. So what might that be for breakfast? Eggs are a great choice because they are high in fat and protein, but not with toast. Because remember, wheat is not real. And we often make the mistake of having, say, 2 pieces of toast and 1 egg, and we have an imbalanced meal. We have 7 grams of protein from the egg, if it's a nice extra large egg, and we can have 30 grams of carbohydrate from the bread. And this is going to cause you to be hungry, and this is going to fuel inflammation, and this is going to require too much insulin. And if we do this day after day, we develop insulin resistance, and the cells can't take it up. And then we have to make even more insulin. And insulin is a fat-storing hormone and makes us have, as we gain more abdominal fat, we start producing more inflammatory chemicals in our body. And it stops off a whole process. So breakfast needs to be blood sugar balancing and super nourishing. So pictured here, I have a guacamole omelet. So an omelet, and in the middle, I put some guacamole. You don't have to do that. You can put whatever vegetables you want. Eggs and vegetables are a good way to start your day, or perhaps a protein shake. But a lot of protein shakes are high in carbohydrate, not in protein. What we want to have for breakfast is enough protein for our needs. For most of us, that's 20 to 30 grams of protein. And then we want to have lots of fat, lots of healthy fat, because every cell membrane in your body has a membrane made of fat. Every cell in your body has a membrane made of fats. And we need to start replacing the type of fats that are harmful and taking them out of our diet and putting the healthy ones in. And that includes saturated fats, as well as the right kind of polyunsaturated fats, not too many of them, and none that have been damaged. And that's a tricky business to figure out because there's so much, quote, conventional wisdom, and it's not correct. We also can get our fats from things like avocado or fresh walnuts, pecans, things like that. And extra virgin olive oil are other safe sources, but not for cooking, because it is still can be broken down, and the antioxidants that are in that extra virgin olive oil can be broken down and lost through high heat cooking. So use it as a dressing after you take it off the burner. If you eat the right kind of breakfast, you are going to feel satiety. And often when people start out with, say, the right kind of protein shake, which is low in carbohydrate, sufficient in protein, and high in fat, they feel satisfied. And within 1 to 2 weeks, they start feeling more energy. They start feeling less cravings, less hunger, and they're surprised. And then a little ways down the road, the other things begin in a whole cascade of healing to improve and improve. If you change your nutrition, you can quite literally change your life. I have seen it in hundreds and hundreds of people with all different kinds of issues and all different kinds of bodies and all different ages and stages. And it's quite remarkable to see. So it always seems impossible until it's done. I want you to think about starting on that journey and thinking about those 3 simple things. Is it real? Is it super nutritious, either in the way it's grown or the way it's handled, the way it's not processed, or in the processes that you put it to the use of? And then thirdly, does it keep my blood sugar balanced? And if you can say yes to all 3 of those things, you will heal your metabolism and you will experience the healing that you're after. We're going to say goodbye. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for joining me. And I hope that you've been inspired. And I hope I've been able to simplify the 3 things you need to think about it with your food. And I wish you success. At Goodness Me, we want to support you in these decisions, so you can come in with your questions. Our staff are there to help you. You can pick up Discover the Power of Food. It's there to help you. We have a lot of great webinars from experts, so take part in those, and hopefully we'll be able to join together in person soon. Thank you so much. It was great to have you with us.